Hello and welcome to Your Neighborhood Show. I'm Carolyn, and Your Neighborhood Show is about drawing out amazing stories of everyday people, of times in their lives when they have felt both connected as well as disconnected. Because that's the nature of life itself. We aim to normalize both connection as well as disconnection. None of us escape disconnection at some point in our life. So let's welcome it, experience it, and celebrate it. Because if you don't experience disconnection, how can you experience the magic of connection? Hello and welcome to the 22nd episode of Your Neighborhood Show. Our guest today is the lovely Julia McDonald Buchanan. I had to practice that one. I met Julia in October of 2025 last year when I did the Vipassana, 10-day Vipassana course, meditation course up on the Sunshine Coast in Pomona as part of my 60th year celebrations. And it really was a bit of torture because when we first met, you have a 3-hour period where people are registering for the course. And we got on so well. We were chatting and then we were sitting next to each other for dinner. And then straight after dinner, they declare noble silence where you have to keep quiet for 10 days. So no talking, no speaking, no eye contact. It's pure 10 hours of meditation a day. And so it was real torture to sit next to her every single day for breakfast, lunch and dinner, not talk to her and not smile at her and not make eye contact. But guess what? After the course, we've connected beautifully and now we've become really lovely friends, and I'm hoping that we'll get more and more connected. And she's with me here today. So you're about to hear an amazing story of a really adventurous, amazing woman, an environmentalist who lives up here on the Sunshine Coast. But I'm going to let you hear from her directly. Welcome, Julia.
Thanks, Carolyn. Yes, well, I was very fortunate in that I grew up on a farm almost on the equator near the Ugandan border. And my father was British and he moved to Kenya when he was 18. And he ended up joining the King's African Rifles and going to Burma and Calcutta during the war. And then after the war, he was offered a soldier settlement farm.
What's a soldier settlement farm?
Well, where a lot of the soldiers could get farms via the British government. And so he was lucky enough to get one. And he met my mother sailing at Lessos Dam Sailing Club, which was a dam he helped build with local farmers. And they obviously fell in love while they were sailing and got married and had 4 of us. So I've got an older sister, an older brother, I'm number 3, and a younger brother.
Nice.
And so we were all brought up on this amazing farm. It was about 3,000 acres, mixed agriculture. We ran wild. We didn't have electricity. So at night we had gas lanterns or hurricane lights until I was about 12 years old. And so we had quite a strict routine as children. My mother was quite a disciplinarian. But apart from that, we had our ponies and we literally lived on the land and had a marvellous life until I was about 5. And then I was sent away to boarding school. And that was quite a shock to the system.
So where was the boarding school?
The boarding school was only about 28 miles away, but it was in the middle of nowhere, and it was a co-ed school. So we had kids from Uganda, from all over East Africa.
So was that like everybody sent their kids to these boarding schools?
Yes, yes. And because we lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere, there wasn't really a day school. Yeah. So off I went at 5.5, and so, we were in a big dormitory. I think there was about 20 of us in my dorm. And I didn't really mind it. In fact, I quite loved my school, despite the rules. But a lot of the girls had never left home. And at night, you could often hear these quiet sobs while they, obviously felt very sad being left without seeing their parents.
Did you recall feeling sadness, estranged from your parents?
I can't really remember too much. I think I probably miss my dogs and my horse more than my parents. Even though I love my parents dearly,
Yes.
I don't recall ever being really miserable.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of girls who used to suffer from quite serious homesickness.
And tell me a bit about the school.
So
So this is
this-
like a primary boarding school.
Yes, it was a primary boarding school on the British sort of system. So it was very much a disciplinarian school. And the headmaster came from England, Mr. Chitty. And I think we were, 150, half girls, half boys. And our routine was get up very early, breakfast, and then we'd have classes, lunch in the big dining room, which was usually some rather disgusting meal. And I always remember being terribly hungry at this school. There was never enough food.
Really?
And we weren't really allowed to tell our parents, because if we wrote, we had to write letters every week. And if we wrote to our parents and we complained about anything, we were scared that there were repercussions from the headmaster.
Wow.
Or
So
headmistress.
Did they actually tell you not to do right? Complain?
Well, we weren't sure if our letters were being intercepted or not before they were sent, because they used to check our handwriting and check that we had written it correctly with the address and the date
Well, they were
and
definitely checking your letters.
paragraphs and all that sort of thing. So I think they were definitely checking.
Wow.
And I found a letter in my mother's desk the other day that my sister had written, and it said, "Dear Mummy and Daddy, I'm very hungry, but please don't tell Mr. and Mrs. Chitty, because I'm scared I'll be in trouble." So, we were quite nervous about
Yes,
complaining
yes.
about anything.
So your sister kept this letter and given it to your mother's kept
My
the letter
mother,
your sister
yes.
wrote to her
Yes.
for all these years.
Yes. It survived the journey.
How old is Mum?
My mother is now about to be 93.
Oh my goodness, that's phenomenal.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
she's kept this letter for
Yeah.
70 odd years,
Yeah.
60, 70 odd
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so I was there from the age of 5 until I was sort of 12 and a half, 13. And, I made lots and lots of good friends. Of course, we looked forward to the holidays because we could go home. And so our whole lives evolved around going back for, I think we were allowed 3 weekends a term to go home. And then we had half term. And if we were naughty, which I regularly was, we were punished and gated, and we weren't allowed to go home for that weekend.
Wow.
So the school was very disciplinarian, and I remember having to write lines the whole time. I must not talk at prep. And you had to write that, 10,000 times.
Like a military kind of.
It was very military.
Wow.
But I suppose it taught this inner resilience, discipline, and it's something that's really carried through in my life. I do feel I am quite resilient and able to adapt to most situations. And I think it was from being sent to that school. It wasn't all bad. They had riding there, and I was a very sporty person, so I was in all the teams, and I loved that.
What kind of sports do they have up there?
We had netball was the big one, hockey, swimming, horse riding.
So just regular horse riding is a
Yeah. And because our school was so high up, being on the equator, when the other schools came to play sport with us, they were exhausted because they weren't used to the
Why?
altitude. Because we were 6,000 feet up, so it was
Right.
very high and the air was quite thin. So we could outrun them quite easily.
And how many people in the school?
About 150.
So it was all the. By the way, do you have any connections with any of those kids from that school? Like your
Yes.
primary school?
Yes, I do. In fact, I reconnected with the girl I slept next to for about 4 years, having not seen her for like 40 years. And we ended up going on a safari together in Uganda and just
How
reminisced
lovely.
on our days at
And
school.
where does she live now?
She now lives in England. And
Because I would imagine, that's such a tender age of 5 to be sent to boarding school. My
Yeah.
goodness. When you said that, I was thinking about my little granddaughter who's 6.
yes,
And they're away from their mother and father for 2 nights at their nanny's house, my house, and after 2 nights they're missing mom and dad, and it's just, in this day and age you'd never think of sending a child to boarding school, but I know in those days, and look, your parents were in a remote part of Kenya where there's no other school, so it would have been the thing to do, but it's still a big shock to the system for a child, and I think it would blow that whole theory of attachment, because you suddenly are detached from parents,
Yes.
But then I think what happens like at that age is you form relationships with other children stronger, because you have to connect with someone. We're social creatures like that, and so that's why I asked the question about do you still have connections with kids from way back when? And your sister, was she in that same school?
Yes.
So were you close to your sister?
Quite, because she was a bit older than me. She was quite bossy, but yes, we were reasonably close.
How much older?
She is 4 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're young, that's a big difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not as. But could you go to her for some consolation? Did you think you could go to her? Or
Not really.
Okay.
In fact, I think what happened going to a school like that, you actually shut down and you don't really tell anybody how you're feeling, because you just feel you can't talk about your feelings and emotions. So I think that side of you really shuts down.
Yes.
And so I don't know how other people dealt with it. Well, I guess it makes you resilient and you learn to deal with it, which is what I did. And you become quite stoical about things.
Yes. And whilst that helps you in life in some areas, it doesn't serve you in life in other areas. But look, we've all got that journey. But I know you had a lovely awakening later on in your life. So we'll hear about that soon. So then what happened?
So because the school only went up to age 13, everybody had to go to another school, and a lot of kids went to the UK because that was the sort of done thing, going to a school
and what age are you now?
13,
I mean, at that time.
13, yes.
13. So 13 is about grade 6 or 7.
Yeah, about grade 7, yes.
That's still so young.
Very young.
Goodness.
And
now you're flying to another country.
Flying to another country, very scary, because the only place I'd been was South Africa. I hadn't actually been out of Africa. So we were put on these aeroplanes, which were called lollipop flights, which were just kids aged between 13 and 17, no adults. And we all flew to England, and off we went to our various different schools.
So did you know other kids that were
only
flying
yes, there were a few kids from my school on the aeroplane, because the school we were sent to was Headington Girls' School just outside of Oxford. It was a school that our parents had chosen. For what reason, I have no idea, because my parents hadn't even been to see this school, but they'd heard it was a school that was a good school. So off we went.
And today's parents will do that much research into schools over here. I mean, I did.
Yeah.
I didn't do tremendous research, but I know my daughter has done so much research into prep school and this school and whichever school. She did about 6 schools she looked at before she made her choice.
Yes.
So it's just different styles of parenting, and I guess it's evolving.
Yes.
I don't always agree with all their ways, but I think a nice balance in between is always good. Anyway, keep going. So then you go off. You're on a flight to England at the age of 13.
Yeah, and I remember arriving at Heathrow Airport being totally unprepared. I think I was just wearing shorts and flip-flops, and it was very, very cold. And my sister said to me, "Right, can you go and buy the ticket to go to Oxford?" And I was absolutely terrified.
Did you not have a guide or a parent?
No. We were on our own completely.
Really?
Yes. But let's just go back a bit. My mother was also sent to boarding school and in Kenya, and she used to have to get up at midnight her father would drive her to the station where they lived, and she'd have to take the train all the way from Kipkaren to Nairobi, where she went to school at the Kenya Girls High School. And they did have a teacher on the train, but can you imagine that? Getting up in the middle of the night.
Unbelievable.
And my father also went to boarding school at a very young age. So I grew up in this atmosphere of that's what you do. And
I think in those days also it would have been a lot more safer than it is today.
yes,
You know?
yes. Yeah.
We've got lots of other stuff
Yeah.
going on in the world today, so we've naturally become
Yeah.
more cautious about
Yeah.
who our children hang with, and we're teaching them who to talk to and
Yeah.
who not to talk to, and
Yeah.
all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. So anyway, that's so
Yeah.
interesting. Keep going.
Yeah. So anyway, we arrived at this school, which was huge.
No, so you were at the train station.
Oh, at the
and your
train
sister asked you to
station.
go and
Anyway,
get a
I
ticket to
ended up
something.
plucking up the courage to go and ask for a ticket to go from London Heathrow to Oxford. And I remember shaking and feeling so stupid that I had to, and I didn't know what to say. And my sister was standing there. Anyway, she probably doesn't remember this, but I remember it very, very clearly. So then we get the train, and I can't remember how we got to our school. But that's where my new life started at this.
And you had your bags.
Had our
and
suitcases with us, which we wheeled onto the train. And then I think we probably got a taxi from the station to the school. And there our new life began. And we just couldn't believe this school. It just looked incredible after our boarding
So what
school.
was the name of the school in Oxford?
It was called Headington Girls' School. And it was half boarders and half day girls. And I loved it there. I settled in very, very quickly.
So what year is this? What?
So I was 13, so it would have been year 8, I suppose.
Okay.
Something like
No,
that.
not year
no.
8.
Oh,
I
year
mean,
9.
19 what? 19.
Oh, gosh. So it would have been 1973. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. I was 13.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm amazed. I mean, you did tell me a bit about it, but it's amazing to hear that a 13-year-old flying a new country, having to navigate public transport by herself, go to her new school. These days, parents fly with their uni student. They're going overseas. They'll fly with them, settle them in their dorm.
Yeah.
Says a lot about resilience building for sure. And also the way of the world at the moment. You know, I think people have to be a little bit cautious, but that's a stark contrast between
Yeah.
the time when you grew up and now. So anyway, so you arrive at this new school.
Yes, and just to go back a little bit to Kenya, because we didn't have electricity till I was like 12 years old, you know, my mother used to read to us under a gaslight. Every night she read us stories. And I think that's where we began to love books, because we
Yes.
didn't have a television. We only had a radio, and so my father was always listening to the BBC. So arriving in England to have bright lights, and there was a television in the common room, 3 meals a day. All the English girls were on a diet, and us Kenya girls, we could not believe the food. We thought the food was amazing. And I remember breakfast eating 20 fish fingers, because the girls next to me, oh no, I'm on a diet. Here, have mine, have mine. And it was wonderful to have all this food and not have to worry about being on a diet.
So big difference to the primary school.
Yes.
Was it
Yes.
as disciplined as your primary school?
It was still quite disciplined, but nothing like the Kenya school,
Okay.
where we had to be in bed at sort of 7:30.
So what was the routine like in this school?
In England, you know, we had, because we were in houses, so I think there was about 50 in our house. We had our own dining room, so we had a more casual breakfast. But still, manners were very important, and we had to sit at the table. And I always remember we were never allowed to ask for anything. You had to look around the table and see if somebody wanted the salt. So you weren't allowed to stretch. You had to say, would you like the salt? And then...
Really?
Yeah. So you had to
Where
notice.
does that come from? I mean, from what?
This was just the way we were brought up at this school. It was just the manners there. They were very, very hot on manners.
So manners in the sense that, so if I've got eating an egg on toast and I want to put salt and pepper in it, I'm not allowed to ask for salt and pepper?
No, you had to expect the person sitting opposite you or next to you to notice that you might need the salt
so
and
building
pepper.
kind of awareness. Wow,
And
I've never
to
heard
this
of that
day,
one.
I still
Really?
have that awareness. And I'll always look at the table and see what...
Would you like some salt and
Yes,
pepper?
yes.
I'm going to remind you next time we go out for dinner. Julia, can you notice what I need? I'd never heard of that. But anyway, that's interesting because it helps you become aware of your situation and what it's not just about I, me, and myself kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a lovely new school in contrast to your primary school on many levels. And you've got your sister, you and your sister are in this school.
Yeah.
You're about 13 years of age. How long were you in that school for?
So I was only there for a year.
Okay.
And I actually loved my year there.
So how come you were there for just a year?
Well, our lives suddenly changed unexpectedly. My parents, sadly, had decided to leave Kenya. And because they were having compulsory land acquisition to various farmers up in our area in Kenya. And the British government had loaned the Kenyan government money to buy out white farmers.
Right.
And they had a year in which to do this. So my parents thought, you know, very seriously about it. And because they had 4 children, they sort of felt they couldn't stay in Kenya and that they needed to move to another country. And my mother had said she didn't want to move to a cold country, which was going back to the UK because that's where my father was from. But my mother was actually born in Kenya and she's 3rd generation African. And we had friends who'd moved to Australia. So they thought, well, maybe Australia's the place to go. So after my year in England, I came back to Kenya for our final holiday, which was really, really hard because we had dogs and horses and we grew up with servants who'd been with us for years. And we had to say goodbye. But my mother had come out to Australia first to see if she liked it, first of all, and to buy a farm. So she took off on her own, travelled all around Australia, went to WA, she travelled around Queensland, and she met friends in Nambour, friends in Maryborough. And they said, oh, you know, this part of the world, Sunshine Coast, is quite nice. It's a bit like Kenya. And on the 3rd last day of her trip, the estate agents took her to this farm west of Gympie. It's about 30 kilometres northwest of Gympie, and she bought it. She said, this reminds me of
Is this
Kenya.
a single decision by herself? Or
It was all by herself because, of course, you know, no phones. You couldn't write to my father. It would take 3 weeks for a letter to get there. But she knew
that amazing?
that he would trust her judgment.
Yes, because she comes from the farming. She's got the farming background.
She was one of 5 girls to go to Egerton Agricultural College in Nairobi.
Wow.
To study agriculture. So
That's amazing.
Yeah. She bought this place with my father having never seen it and flew back to Kenya, packed up, and then we came out via...
So Dad relied on Mum to make this choice about their future, basically.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. But my father was a really lovely, kind man, and yes, he trusted her judgment completely.
So tell me, so why did they want to move you from England to Australia?
So because I had only been there for a year, and obviously it was very expensive to keep me there. And my older brother was also at Stowe School in England, and my sister, I think he was doing O levels and she was doing A levels. So it was complicated to move them during that time. So my younger brother and I came with my parents via Mauritius to WA, where we had her sister, and then we flew over to Queensland and arrived in Brisbane with our bags.
What year was this now?
This was in 1973. Oh, sorry,
1973 you were in England.
1974. So a year later. So 73 I went to boarding school.
So did you build any connections with the girls in England?
Yes, I did.
In that school?
Yes.
Are you still in contact with any of them?
No. Not one. Apart from the ones who were in Kenya with me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the ones that were in Kenya went to here and then you came here. So you still have contact with those ones. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, 1 year is a short period to build long-term connections, especially at that age, I suppose.
Yes.
But, so then you come back to, and what was it like for you to leave your school in England, in Oxford?
It was awful. I was actually devastated because I had really great friends and I was just really getting into the rhythm of life there.
Luxury boarding school?
Yes. And, my aunt lived in Southampton and we'd go and spend half term there and we'd be so spoilt. And, it was just wonderful. Loved it. So it was a lovely life.
And tell me, how much contact did you have with mum and dad from boarding
Only
school?
writing letters. That was it. Yep. So we'd all be hanging out for a letter every week from our parents. So there was no telephone calls or anything like that.
Well, it would have been, if there was, it would have been highly expensive.
Yes.
But so did they write often?
Yes.
Was it like
Yes.
Okay.
Very regularly.
Do you know, I still have the letters that my mum wrote to me after I got married and came here on blue aerograms. I still have them.
Yes.
And it brings tears to my eyes. I do read them every now and then. And
Yes.
It's just nostalgic.
Yes.
Today you have no letter writing. It's all
no
emails
one knows how
or
to
phone
hold a pen
calls
anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there was something about writing a letter,
Yes.
to anyone. And you'd have to take the time to sit down and then collect your thoughts and share on paper and then post, and then the excitement of getting a letter and reading.
Yes.
So you moved to Australia with your sister? Your brother, your younger brother.
My younger brother. Yeah.
What's your younger brother's name?
Tim.
So you and Tim. And what happened to your sister? Did she continue to study there?
She was at school in England. She continued on to study and then she joined us a little bit later.
Okay.
And so did my older brother.
Right.
Yeah.
So you flew from Oxford to Brisbane?
No, so went back to Kenya.
Oh, yes, of course. And came here with mum and dad.
Yep. And then we flew out and we travelled through Western Australia and then flew to Brisbane. And, of course, we had our bags and the first thing we needed to do was buy a car. So, and we're all very British and we go to this used car because my parents would never buy a new car. You don't do that sort of thing. And they ended up buying a Holden. And I'll never forget this, because when they went to buy this car, the car salesman said, "And what sort of model car do you want? Do you want a light model?" And my father said, "What do you mean by a light model?" He meant a late model.
Oh, of course, the accent.
With the Australian accent.
I had that same problem when I arrived. And you can imagine the Indian accent to the Australian accent.
Yeah.
I found it very difficult,
Yeah.
So the A's become I's. Yeah. That's funny.
It was very funny.
And so you had to go to school again, a new school again here in Sunshine Coast. Which school was that? Gympie.
Yeah.
Gympie High School.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What was that like for you?
So
you're now how old are you now?
I'm
15?
now 14.
14.
Yep. And, everything's happening.
Yes.
And having been at boarding school from the age of 5 until I was 14, I begged my parents not to send me away again. I just thought it would be wonderful to live at home with them.
Yes.
And so they sent me to the Gympie High School, which was a big change from a posh English girls' boarding school to the Gympie High School.
In what way?
I was used to sort of being with people from a very similar background. And so it was a big awakening for me to be with kids from
Did you feel different?
I felt so different. First of all, I was very tall and I had a very English accent. And I tried very hard to fit in. I tried to get the Australian accent. I tried to make myself shorter. And I had to get the bus to school every day. So my parents would drop me at Widgie and then I'd hop on the school bus and then end up going to the Gympie High. So I had 2 years there, but I was not happy. And my parents could see I was very unhappy. But they didn't know how to deal with a child who was unhappy because I'd been away since I was 5. And I think they still thought I was about 5 years old. They hadn't seen me grow into a teenager.
Yes, well, they were not present in all those years. Yeah.
And they were probably dealing with their own stuff, having
Yes.
left this wonderful life behind, buying this farm where they had to do everything themselves.
Yes,
No one to help.
No servants as they
No
had.
servants. My mother had never cooked. She'd never even boiled an egg in her
my
life.
goodness. So it was a culture shock for them.
A huge culture shock. But they just got on with it, and I never heard them complain. Then they had this difficult teenager who was, going through a really tough time.
So what was the environment in your home then around all this? Because mom and dad are trying to adapt to a completely new lifestyle here in Gympie. You're dealing with your sense of feeling out of place in school. You're at puberty.
Yeah. I think because I'm an animal lover, the first thing we bought were horses, and we got dogs. I had this most amazing horse called Regatta, and I would just jump on her bareback and go and gallop.
So that's a
that
great
was my
way.
freedom.
Yes.
And
connecting to animals.
Yes.
And horses.
Yes.
Wow.
And plus we worked very hard on the farm because we bought about 200 head of cattle, and we did all the work, all the mustering, the branding, the castrating. My mother and I did all the cattle work, and then my father helped do the branding and the castrating. So we worked jolly hard. It wasn't just swanning about. It was working and working the farm.
No time to indulge in
No.
all the other stuff which goes with what it is to be human when you're dealing with stuff. But so keeping busy is a mechanism.
Yeah. And then because I was so miserable, they decided to send me back to boarding school. So off I went, and they had heard about...
Off you went to which boarding school?
To St Hilda's on the
Where's
Gold
that?
Coast. Yes,
okay.
Southport. So I ended up doing grade 11 and 12 there, which actually I quite enjoyed. I felt more comfortable back in that environment again.
You've grown up in that structured kind of day.
Very structured, and that's what I was used to. But I still had this inner longing to go back to Africa. That's all I wanted to do, because I felt I'd never really said goodbye.
Yes.
Because it was all cut short so quickly.
You left when you were 12.
And it was all so sudden. So I had this burning desire, and of course I had no idea what I was going to do when I left school. And my parents, we weren't really given any guidance. So I ended up going to Sydney and doing sort of preschool children. And then I left and went back to Kenya. So
it's sounding like wherever you've been in your primary school, England, Gympie High School, boarding school down the coast, you're hardly there, and then you've got to move.
Yeah.
You're hardly there, and you've got to move again.
Yeah.
And it's like it's difficult to form strong bonds and relationships when you're on the move all the time.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And it also becomes a way of being without us even realizing it. A way of coping with maybe getting close to somebody. Like you hardly get close to somebody and you're taken away.
Yeah.
So that becomes your norm.
Yeah.
Did that play out further on in your life?
Yes, I think it has. I do think...
Anyway, before we go there, tell us about what happened when you did go back to Kenya, you said.
Yes, so I went back to Kenya. My sister was by then living there, and she was actually going to get married to a Kenyan guy, and I went out to be a bridesmaid. Anyway, at the last minute, she decided that she didn't want to get married. So there was lots of tears, and she broke that off. But I ended up staying in Kenya and working, and I was kindergarten teaching in Nairobi.
Did you go back to your old house or area? Or
no. She was renting a little cottage in this suburb called Karen, which is just outside of Nairobi. So we ended up sharing this little place together. And honestly, I've had the time of my life. It was incredible. Going back to Kenya, going on safari at weekends, going camping, going riding, playing tennis, working. There's nothing like Kenya, really.
Yeah.
It's
your heart seems to still be there.
My heart is still there.
Yeah.
And I do go
back. So how long were you there for?
So that stint, I was there for about 2 or 3 years, and I ended up having a lovely relationship with a Canadian wildlife professor, and we did a lot of traveling, a lot of camping at weekends, and that was wonderful. And then he got a job in Tanzania, lecturing at the College of African Wildlife Management. So I went with him and ended up working for an American company, taking out photographic safaris to all the different national parks in Tanzania. So I did that for 2 years, climbed Mount Kilimanjaro a couple of times.
Amazing. So you're in your seventh heaven.
Yes.
Because you're in your home country,
Yes.
but you're also doing lots of nature stuff. And
Yes.
you loved horse riding
Yeah.
and being out there in nature. And where did the passion for photography come from?
I think probably from taking those safaris. I've always had a camera with me, always taken photos, but it's just developed as I've got older. And now I never stop taking pictures, usually of the environment, nature, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So then, so you didn't get married to the professor?
No. I actually got engaged to him, and he then got transferred to Switzerland, to Gland, to work for the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And I ended up going with him for a little time, but I realized that I was too young, didn't want to settle down, and he didn't want children. So that
And you wanted children.
And I knew I
Yes.
wanted children. Not now, but down the line. So I ended that and came back to Australia and thought, well, goodness, what am I going to do?
How old were you then?
So I was 24, so still quite young.
So you had a lovely couple of years,
Yep.
something like that, in
Yep.
Kenya. Had a
Yep,
great
and a couple
time
of years in Tanzania, and then went to Switzerland, and then came back. And because I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted it to be something outdoorsy, environmental.
Yeah.
And I remember buying the Courier Mail one day and looking in the job section, and I saw this advert for a guest activities coordinator at Binabara Mountain Lodge.
Wow.
I didn't even know where Binabara was. I had no idea. And I thought, oh, that sounds like me. I think I'll go for this job. So I sent my CV, and they actually wanted somebody who had an outdoor ed degree. And I didn't have that. So I thought, oh, I don't know if I'll get this. Guess what? I was offered the job. And that was life-changing for me.
Oh, tell us about that.
So I moved up to Binabara.
Moved up there?
Yeah, I moved up there. Had to work.
So if you work there, you get residence there as a
No,
guest?
had to rent a place.
What were you, a guest?
Activities coordinator. So basically running all the bushwalking, slide presentations, bush dances, running the bar.
I can see you doing all of that.
Yeah. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I learnt a lot because I didn't really know much about our plants, the rainforest plants.
Of course, different to Kenya.
Yeah, very different. But yeah, so that was really where my love of the rainforest and the environment and plants came in. So I did that for nearly 3 years. And then I had this man I had met quite a long time ago suddenly reappeared in my life. And he came to see me and said, right, you're coming with me. We're going to sail to South America.
Wow. You've got a beautiful adventurous spirit in you. There's always this, following your heart and following your heart's desire, like really, and listening to your inner instinct. Like even when you were with your first man that you were engaged to, and he went off to Switzerland.
Yeah.
You just broke off that engagement because he didn't want children.
Yeah.
And you just followed, I remember growing up in India myself, and I wasn't that much in connection with what my inner voice. I mean, I could hear it, but I didn't follow it. I didn't listen to it. So that's amazing that you can do that. So anyway, so then you've met this fellow.
Yeah, and he was actually a very famous sailor, and he had done several Whitbread round the world yacht races. He'd navigated the Russian boat through the Whitbread round the world race. And I had met him on one of my trips in the UK, and we'd sort of made contact, but nothing serious. And then he decided that I was the one for him. And so he came to get me, and I said, yeah, sure. So we went
Off
to New
you
Zealand, where
To New Zealand.
had built a boat. Previously, he'd done expeditions in Antarctica. And so we sailed with 5 others to South America, which took 36 days
Wow.
on this 54-foot steel sloop, which was, oh my
Talk
goodness.
about life experiences.
Yes.
You're a queen.
Well, I don't know about that. But anyway, and that was a very tough crossing. We were hit by a Force 11. We lost our rudder halfway across, about 2,500 miles offshore, where we had to make a jury rig and make a rudder out of the floorboards. Anyway, we managed to survive because back then we were in the middle of nowhere, and even if we'd set our EPIRB emergency beacon off, nobody would have found us. So luckily...
How many people on this boat?
There was 5 of us. And anyway, we limped into the Straits of Magellan, where we had to fix the boat. And I think we spent about 5 weeks there. And I remember stepping off the yacht, and I could barely stand because all we'd been using was all about using the winches. So my arms were really strong, but my legs were... And I think I even fell over. So it took us a while to recover from that trip. And the plan had been to then sail on to South Africa. But after this really difficult crossing, we decided to stay and work in South America and charter the boat. So the other crew left, and we sailed on down to Tierra del Fuego through the Beagle Channel, which was made famous by Darwin on the Beagle. And we decided to start running expeditions around Cape Horn, up the Beagle Channel, and down to the Antarctic.
So this is you and your
my
partner?
boyfriend.
Your boyfriend.
Yes. The American famous sailor. So we did that. And I think our first expedition was with an Italian mountaineering team. And we spent, nearly 2 months down there. Skiing. Amazing.
So then what happened after that?
So then after that, we were down there for about 4.5 years, taking expeditions in the summer season. And then in the winter, we'd go back to England or stay in South America and try and drum up business. Then I did the lecture tour in America, going around all the yacht clubs, talking about the sailing and trying to drum up business. So I did that for nearly 5.
Did you get married to this gentleman?
No. But I got engaged.
Okay.
Going around Cape Horn, and which was wonderful. But then one day I woke up and I thought, oh, I'm not sure I'm ready to get married. And if I do marry this man, I'm going to be left at home holding the baby. So once again, I jumped ship. And by this time, I'm 34.
Yes.
Or 33, 34, seriously on the shelf. Thinking, okay.
Oh, don't say that.
That's what I felt.
Yes, of course, because that's like we grew up like that. You know,
Yes.
like by 24 you have to be married, have children.
Yes.
You know, that was the thing. But yeah, I'm sorry, I should not have said don't say that. But we did grow up with that attitude. And today, I mean, women of today are getting married at 34 is quite normal.
Yeah.
You know, it's absolutely fine. And even if you didn't get married, that's okay too.
Yeah.
But sorry, keep going.
So it was a big decision because it was an amazing life, you know, sailing.
So what made you break off with this partner?
I just felt that he was a real adventurer, expeditioner, and I suppose my hormones at this time, I did want to settle down, and I think he did too, but on his terms. And I felt that his terms weren't going to
work with your terms.
Work with mine.
See, you've listened to yourself again there.
Yeah, so I was listening to my intuition. It was telling me. So
I remember you saying you didn't think that if you had babies that he would be there because he'd be busy traveling, and then you'd be navigating that whole motherhood yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what made you jump ship from that relationship.
Yeah.
So then what happened? Where did you come?
So we're back to, okay, here I am. What's next? So I flew back to London thinking, well, I'll go back to Australia and seek my fortune again. And on the way, I stayed with some friends in London. and I was invited to go sailing in France by a group of friends. And on that weekend, I met the man I was going to marry. And I knew instantly that I met him. Within 3 days, I just knew it, that James was the man I was going to marry. And he was very different. Well, first of all, he was an Englishman, a very cultured man, and a very soft man. And having been with a sort of adventurer, full on, it was nice to have a bit of a change, I suppose. No, I mean, as in just someone who is a little bit more soft. So
what did he do? What did James do?
So James studied history of art at Edinburgh University, but he didn't end up getting into art. He was a foodie, and he had his own catering company in London.
So you got married to James.
So we met, and we got married like 9 months later, and I ended up moving to London and started my married life.
Tell me, were you in contact with your mum and dad all this time when you were traveling overseas?
Always writing letters.
Right.
Yes, always. So
they always knew where you were and what you were doing.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's very different. They just didn't really worry about us in those days.
Yes.
I think
we
worry
had that
about
freedom to go and do what... I do remember when getting married and coming here to Australia, I was 24, and I don't recall... My mum used to write me letters maybe once a month or something, but I don't recall talking to my mother regularly, I mean, I dealt with my own stuff in my own marriage, but I don't remember calling on her for support. Like, my daughter and I now, we're 3 streets away. I know what's going on in her life, and she doesn't always know what's going on in mine, but I know what's going on in hers. But I'm a big support for her, and so it's a contrasting quite a difference to how we grew up. Like, we were kind of raised to be resilient and deal with our own stuff ourselves, which is not necessarily a good thing. It is and it isn't, because I really believe a village around you, a network of support is important. But look, I've only become wise in my much later years.
Well, thank goodness for that, I think.
So you've been in touch with mum and dad all your traveling
all the
and
time.
stuff.
I felt very close to my parents, and would come back occasionally. Yes, I wouldn't say we were very emotional. We didn't tell them about what was going on in our lives, but I felt very loved all my life. And I feel I've had a very happy and fortunate life in many ways.
Correct.
So my new life started in London, my married life, and within a year I had a baby, and I was living in a house, having really had nothing except a small suitcase with a few possessions. And then suddenly I had this amazing different life, living in a city, having a new baby, a husband who was working incredibly hard. So it was a difficult transition for me. And quite a lonely transition, because I didn't really know that many people in London. Having a tiny baby, I didn't have my mum there to help me.
How did you cope with that?
With difficulty, it was hard. But I had met somebody in the antenatal class who was an Australian girl, and we ended up being in the same hospital, having our first child together. And we became best of friends, and we really supported each other, and used to take our babies to the park, because that's what you do in London. You take your baby to the park, and we'd walk around the park talking, and she saved me in many ways. And she said,
"Are you in contact with her?"
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful.
We're such
So is she
good
still
friends.
in England?
She now lives in Hobart.
Ah.
And I've just been to her eldest daughter's wedding.
Oh, I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
So this is the lady that you met in England, walking in the park with your daughter, your children. How many children have you got, Julia?
2. Yeah.
Girl and a boy.
A boy 28 and a daughter 26.
Nice. Yeah. So what happens then in England? So you have these children. You feel you've met this lovely girlfriend.
Yep. And so that was the beginning of my life. My husband was working very, very hard. I was sort of a traditional wife, I suppose, bringing up the children. I did help him a bit in the catering company. So we had 8 years in London. and we also went to Scotland regularly because he had a place up there. So I wasn't unhappy, but I always felt I wanted land and nature and to have a bit more freedom, and felt the children would benefit from that. So we ended up leaving London and moving to the Sunshine Coast, where we bought a small macadamia farm. So
Is that where you live now?
Yes. Yeah. So my husband sold the business, and we did this classic tree change, moved to the Sunshine Coast, thinking it would be wonderful and the kids would run around madly climbing trees. But they were London children now.
Yes.
Mum, can we go to the park? I want to meet my friends. I want to go in the climbing frame. And I'm thinking, you've got trees to climb. You're in nature.
That's how you grew up.
That's how I grew up.
Yes.
So it was an interesting transition. It wasn't as easy as what we thought it was going to be. And my husband had said to me, look, we'll give it 5 years. And if after 5 years it doesn't work, because culturally it was very different. And we had a huge network of friends in England. Him having been to university, and then through the kids we met lots and lots of people. So suddenly it was just us on this farm working, and it was hot.
And how old were the kids then? When
6 and 8.
Okay, so they went to school.
They went to the local state school in Mapleton, which they loved because it was free and they didn't have to wear shoes.
They were young enough to adapt quickly.
They adapted very quickly, and they both loved it. But James never really settled. And so after, 7 years, he said, let's go back to England. And I said, I can't. And so we made a decision to amicably split. So we amicably split, which was very difficult for both of us.
Yes.
But obviously there must have been other underlying things, otherwise I would have gone. But
did you feel a sense of close connection to James, Julia?
Yes and no. I think because he was also very British, and I think I was longing for a deep emotional contact, and I always felt he wasn't very present. But I didn't really know that because my emotions had always been pushed down,
yes.
and I'd never been able to speak my feelings. I just couldn't do it. So 2 big things happened before we decided to split. I was actually training to do a big endurance ride. I'd bought this Arab, and I was getting up at 4
You bought a what?
Arab horse.
Right.
To do endurance riding, which is hard and fast. And I was into, fast. And I was setting out on a training ride with my neighbour to do a 40-kilometre fast ride through the forest. And we got up
This
at
is
4.
up on the Sunshine Coast?
Yes. I had a horse up there. And we set off at 4 a.m. and we were just trotting along the dam wall casually. And my horse did this huge shy. And I went flying and fell off and smashed. It was a really bad fall. Smashed my arm, bashed my head. Anyway, I didn't know if I'd broken my neck. Luckily, I was riding with my neighbour who was a doctor. And I'm lying there on the side of the road. Don't move because,
Goodness.
Anyway, this was the big change for my life. I had smashed
So this was after you split with James?
Just
James
before.
has left? Or
Just before. Before, this was part of my big awakening. So I had this horrendous horse riding accident. The marriage was floundering and James was unhappy. And I realised that I'd always been pushing myself far too hard and taking responsibility for everything. And this accident woke me up completely. And then the marriage broke up. He left and my eldest son went with him.
Oh my
and I
goodness.
was left. So we went from 4 to 2. And I literally went to pieces and thought this was my
Everything
awakening.
kind of was crumbling at the same time.
Everything.
So you had an accident, your marriage breaks down, your son goes
Left.
away with dad.
Yes, He was 15.
Wow.
So I was left with my daughter and I, and she was at boarding school in Brisbane.
So you were alone.
I was alone.
How did you cope with with the accident stuff?
Oh, it was a really tough year, and I felt very, very lonely. But I managed to push through, and
This is the resilience training that's
the
kicking
resilience.
in. Yes.
Get up, get going, pick yourself up.
And mum and dad were still in Gympie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But they didn't. My father had also died quite a long time ago.
Okay.
Before I got married, he had died. And so my mother was a widow from the age
Right.
of 60. But I never told them anything. You know,
Yeah.
they had no idea
Yeah.
what was going on.
Yeah. I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yes. So my daughter was at school in Brisbane, so I was lucky enough to have a place in Brisbane. So I moved to Brisbane, pulled her out of boarding, kept the farm, so I was managing, and ended up signing on to do a yoga teacher training course, which is where everything changed.
Wow. What did you see for yourself in that?
Well, I remember I had to do this pose where you stand on your head, which I was terrified to do. And I remember the yoga teacher really helping me, and I ended up doing it. And I was afraid I was going to hurt my back, but I did it. And I just felt this incredible sensation through my body where I let go. Everything began to let go of this tightness that I'd been holding on to.
Isn't that amazing?
It was amazing.
So you distinctly remember that moment.
Absolutely. Everything changed for me. And then I became a seeker. I mean, I've always been a seeker. I read Carl Gibran when I was 20. I read The Road Less Traveled By. I read I'm Okay, You're Okay. So I was always searching. And this was part of my journey. So I did the yoga teacher training, not to
Almost
become...
like you had built, at least the sense that I'm getting is that you'd built this resilience wall around you.
Yes.
And when you have all those things happening, your divorce, your horse accident, your son going, suddenly all your walls, metaphoric walls, are kind of falling down in front of you.
Yeah.
And then you go and do this yoga training.
Yeah.
And then this lotus blooms kind of awakening that happens for you.
Yeah.
That you don't need to have that wall of resilience to protect you, kind of thing. You can relax into your softness, kind of a...
Yeah, so I became a seeker and read every sort of, well, not self-help, but, you know, I was on this journey of awakening, which is what I'm on now.
Which is where we met at the Vipassana.
Which is where I was so lucky to sit next to you at the Vipassana.
And same here,
here
Julia.
we
It was so lovely. And remember the 10th day when we could talk, we ran towards each other and there was this huge, massive hug.
Yes, yes.
Well, it's been so, so lovely to hear your entire story. Like we started at Vipassana and we've ended at Vipassana, and you've absolutely had one of the most richest life journeys that I've heard so far. And I love that you've got this beautiful, adventurous, free spirit in you, that you keep yearning for more and yearning for what's next, you know, but always wanting to learn.
Yes.
And discover more about yourself.
Yes.
If you had to give your children one life lesson, if you had to share one life lesson from your life, if you had to pass it on to your kids, what would that be?
It would be to take every opportunity that comes your way and make the most of it. Because we all get caught up in the small stuff. And, you know, there's a big world and a big life out there, and I know what's happening in the world right now. But also to try and live in the moment and take each day as it comes.
Because we can get caught up in societal norms.
Yeah.
And, you know, as you said, get married, you made that statement, I was on the shelf. That's a societal norm, you know.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It's been such a delight to chat with you, Julia, and I'm so glad that you agreed to come here and sit in this chair. And how are you feeling now? Are you still nervous?
No, I feel great. Listen,
I told you.
just seeing you, Carolyn, makes me feel relaxed, really, honestly.
You're a
Thank
sweetheart,
you.
Julia. Thank you so much. And I'm sure our audience has got a lot from this beautiful story. If you liked the episode today, we'd love it if you put a like on our YouTube channel, leave a comment, share it, subscribe to the podcast so that we can share these stories far and wide. Look, life is made up of up, down, and all over the place, as you can see from Julia's story, and it's all amazing. It's okay to be disconnected. It's amazing to be connected. Because if you don't know what disconnection is, how can you experience the magic of connection? So disconnection is part of life, and I'm so glad you came and shared your story with us today. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'm looking forward to going back to planting more trees.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.